Hi everybody, and welcome to another edition. I can never remember what the word is, of Book Scoop. I'm Priscilla, and I have two adult books, one fiction and one nonfiction, to talk about.
And I'm Marcia, and I chose two fantasy books for children.
And I'm Sarah, and I have an adult biography, and I have a children's historical fiction.
All right. So I read The Collective Regrets of Clover by Micki Braumer. And this is a novel about a woman in her 30s who has had a lot of experiences with death as a child, and so has become a death doula. And she understands death better than she understands living. Mm-hmm. And so it's a very poignant story about just trying to figure out life, mm-hmm. and how to live it, while also helping people understand death as part of life. Mm-hmm. It's a tiny bit of romance. It's a lot about just figuring out who you are and how you fit in the world, and a nice story, mm-hmm. too. So yeah, The Collective Regrets of Clover. Very relatable on many levels, and a good story. The other one I read is my continuing journey with nonfiction self-help books, but this one is good. Joy is My Justice, Reclaim What Is Yours by Tanmet Sethi. I love the title because, like, currently in the current day, being joyful is sometimes hard, mm-hmm. And you don't really think of joy having much to do with justice. Mm-hmm. Tanmet Sethi is a physician. She is a Sikh, the child of immigrants, and also works with a low-income population, sees a lot of trauma, and has experienced a lot of trauma, and has experienced racism, and yet has developed, she's a mind-body physician, works a lot with helping people with anxiety and fear and just everything we all deal with. But it's not a book about positive thinking. It's a book about really understanding that in a very difficult world, that being joyful is an act of fighting for justice. I can't even begin to explain it. You got to read the book, but it's like a really powerful message. Mm-hmm. And she does not spare your feelings, does not try to sugarcoat anything, and her life is not any easier than anybody else's. As a matter of fact, parts of it are quite difficult, but she still has established this practice of really living in your body and learning to be joyful even while acknowledging how difficult life can be. Mm-hmm. So, mm-hmm. a very powerful book, Joy is My Justice.
Mm-hmm.
I chose two lighter books this month compared to last month. Mm-hmm. And I'll start with What Stays Buried by Suzanne Young. And it's a fantasy book about a girl who can communicate with ghosts and spirits of dead people. And as I was reading it, I thought, this is not a lot less anxiety producing than the books I read last month. But that's because I get easily drawn into stories. Sure. It's a story about how things that are literally buried keep influencing the past, and how burying what's inside of you needs to come out in order to live fully. And that all in a story about this girl who has only 5 days left of communicating with spirits and ghosts, because then she will turn 13, and in her family, everybody who turns 13 loses that capability. And she has to solve something before her 13th birthday. And that's where it came, oh, is she gonna make it or not? What Stays Buried by Suzanne Young. And then I also read The Eyes and the Impossible by Dave Eggers. A beautiful story about a dog who is the eyes of everything on the island. And it's his job to be the eyes and to then report to 3 buffalo, who are the old and wise animals of the island, who need to know everything, but the buffaloes are contained, and so he is their eyes because he can roam freely. It's a story about many things, but the main storyline is that the eyes, the dog, whose name is Johannes, decides that wouldn't it be great if he could free the buffalo so that they could roam and run just like him. And that's when he finds out that he's on an island, and that to really roam and run, he needs to get them to the mainland. And he gets all the animals of the island involved to help the buffalo escape. That's all I'll tell about the storyline. It's really a beautiful story. I'm not going to say if the buffalo will be free or not, because there's more than one thing that decides that. And I'm not sure if this is very visible, but there's 12 or 13 beautiful illustrations in this book with Johannes, the dog, roaming in woods and in wide grasslands. When I looked at those pictures, I thought, that's a peculiar dog. And lo and behold, halfway through the story, I found out that there's a reason why he looks like a very, I don't know, is this a dog or not? So read this book and you'll find out too. The pictures are actually real paintings from the 13th through 16th century.
Oh, wow.
And the illustrator has put Johannes
In the
picture.
No, that's cool. That's very cool.
It's really, really a very nice book to read, and not anxiety inducing.
I had seen that Kwame Alexander had a memoir coming out, and so as soon as I saw that it was coming out in May, I knew which book I was going to read. But then there were 2 more books that came out, and I went, I need to read those too. So we're going to start with this one, though. It's called Why Fathers Cry at Night, a memoir and love poems, letters, recipes, and remembrances. It was very good, and I listened to a 25-minute podcast. He was discussing writing this book with someone, and so it certainly, you would think that he's writing it about his daughters, and that's what he intended to do, and that's not totally what happened.
Oh, wow.
What precipitated this, his mother, who he was very close to, passed away. His second marriage split up, and his first daughter left home and isn't talking to him.
Oh.
And so he experiences all of those things with his mom, with his dad, and they stayed married but didn't live together. And he talks about how that's how he learned about love, was watching his parents, which was not necessarily a great relationship. About his first wife and his first daughter, and his second wife and his second daughter. And friends, he talks about Nikki Giovanni, who is a poet also, is that right? And she was one of his teachers in college, and he thought that she hated him, and then found out later that, maybe that wasn't true, but read it because that's kind of a funny part. So there is poetry like to his children, stories to his dad, poetry to his mom. So there's a little bit of everything in here. So a couple times it's kind of hard to tell like who he's writing it to, but by the time you get to the end of that, you're like, oh, well, that's to this person for sure. And there is a poem in here called 10 Reasons Why Fathers Cry at Night that you'll get it. The second book, maybe you read Inside Out and Back Again like 12 years ago? Is that right?
That's been
I truly don't know how to say the author's name. Thana Lai, something like that. So Inside Out and Back Again, we meet Ha, who she and her family are escaping from Vietnam during the Vietnam conflict. And they come to the United States, and they are refugees who speak no English. It's she and 3 brothers, right? And her mom. And her dad was MIA in the war, and you don't really know what has happened. And it's learning how to go to school and learning food and finding jobs in the first book. And this kind of picks up 2 years later, but not a lot has changed. She has found a friend, and she's kind of figured out school a little bit, but it's still really hard. And they end up moving right at the beginning of the book. They move from Alabama to Texas. And it's them kind of finding themselves. Mom ends up living with someone else to be closer to work so that they can save enough money to put a down payment on a house that's their own. But the brothers are kind of doing their own thing, and the mom is encouraging them to be themselves and not just to take care of her and the family. Very good. This is also a book in verse. I told my sister-in-law that, and she said, in verse? I said, no, it's in verse. So it's poetry. She's like, oh, I get it. Yeah.
I want to write a book in verse.
But there is an author's note in the back, too, that she talks about some questions that she's gotten. And people say, why do the sequel now? And she said, it's to say thank you to all of the students and teachers and librarians who wanted to know what happened to Ha. So this is kind of like a gift to people to share what has happened. And the author herself came from Vietnam, so parts of this are taken from real life. But she and 8 siblings, I think, is what she said. It was, and their mom. So yeah. But When Clouds Touch Us is the name of this book. Very good. If you haven't read Inside Out and Back Again, start with that first. I just wanted to mention too that if you had read Angeline Boulley's The Firekeeper's Daughter, the sequel to that came out, and now I'm not going to remember the name of that right now.
Something about Warrior Girl or something like that.
We have it here. Come check it out. We'll get it for you. I read the first couple pages. It sounds fantastic. It's maybe not exactly a sequel, but it uses the twin nieces as the main people in the story.
Yeah, just to say something about Inside Out and Back Again, which you did say, but that's the first book that really got me to understand the power of a book in verse, because I always was a little like, there aren't that many words, you didn't work that hard. But
I think maybe they work harder to
I
make
think
those
they work
words
harder
so powerful.
because I think it just shows the power of poetry to evoke such emotion and imagery and something.
And it's not poetry that you think of like I don't understand it poetry.
Right.
This is like you got it.
Yeah, like
it's
you
very
got
clear.
it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the emotions I think is what really comes through in that book.
And in this one, and I can't remember because it's been so long since I've read Inside Out and Back Again, the italics in the poem are either the part that she's saying in English or the part that she's thinking in Vietnamese, so you can see kind of what she's able to think and say in English and what she's still speaking in Vietnamese because she doesn't know that part, so it's kind of interesting too.
Yeah. So, a lot of good new books to read. We hope you'll stop by and check some of them out.